Working with everyday brands like Uber and TikTok to thought leaders like McKinsey and The Economist, Wolff Olins is a self-described global brand consultancy who has developed some of the world's most iconic visual brand identities. Today we're going to take a look at how Wolff Olins came to be, some of my favorite projects from them, and what I think they should do next. But before we get into it, be sure to support the show by giving this episode a like, leaving a comment, and of course, by subscribing. This is Ziggy the Designer, the show where we talk about the world of graphic design and the people who make it move. Design is all around us, so we might as well talk about it. Founded in London in 1965 by Michael Wolff and Wally Olins, Wolff Olins, otherwise known as WO, is a self-described global brand consultancy that is led by ambition and optimism. Wolff was a product designer and interior designer, having studied architecture. Meanwhile, Olin spent time with Ogilvy and Mather as a director. So this dynamic, it isn't unlike what you see in most agencies and how they form, right? You have the more overarching creative, in this case Michael Wolff, teaming up with the person with more agency and business experience, in this case Wally Olins. I've worked at a couple of agencies in my career as a graphic designer, and that's the exact dynamic I saw in the agencies I worked with, and the partners and even the owners of the agencies. You had the more creative mind pairing up with the more business-minded person. So in 1965, they start WO. And in 2001, they were acquired by, who else? Omnicom, the king of acquisitions in agency land. And yes, that is a newspaper clipping from the June 1st, 2001 issue of the New York Times. That's the type of research we do here at Ziggy the Designer. Altogether, in its 60-year history, Wolff Olins has really made a name for themselves as the agency behind some of the most iconic visual identities. So why don't we take a look? Let's get into it. One of my favorite projects from the team at WO has to be their work with the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, or otherwise known as the Met. To be honest, this is one of my favorite logos ever. I'm a big fan of this, and I was really happy that I was able to talk about this when talking about WO. If you don't know the Met, they are one of the most prestigious art institutions in the world, holding pieces such as Water Lilies by Monet and, of course, the American favorite, Washington Crossing the Delaware. They're also behind the famous Met Gala, a celebration of their costume institute. So what does this Met Museum identity look like? Well, let's start with the logo. The logo is this beautiful typographic mark. We have this elegant, classic serif typeface merging together to read simply the Met. WO writes, by connecting the letters and ambitiously remixing design traditions, the new logo brings the past boldly into the present. I love it because as it is a typographical mark, it functions as a word mark, but also because of its more abstract approach to the typography and its layout in a square, it also functions as a pictorial mark. To balance out the expressive typography in the logo mark, WO paired it with a sans serif typeface. It gives the logo room to breathe. It gives it the opportunity to really stand in the spotlight. We see that here in the front cover of the museum maps. Yes, we get the big, hello in that sans serif typeface, but still standing in that upper left-hand corner is that beautiful The Met logo. And then we get to a point where not a lot of museums are going to want to follow the Met, and that's in color usage, right? If you look at the other prestigious art institutions in the world, right, talking about the Louvre, the Musée d'Orsay, and even the Museum of Modern Art, those brand identities all lead with black and white, and most of the time it's to let their collection of art speak for itself. You don't really want to get too colorful in a museum brand identity to where it distracts from the art. And so The Met leading with this straight, pure red, right? It makes it an outlier in the world of art museums. And it works. Woe writes, "We based our brand transformation of the Metropolitan Museum of Art around a core mantra: life to art, art to life, reflecting the museum's power to connect, connecting past and future, connecting cultures and traditions from all over the world, connecting cultural heritage and expression to the audiences of today." Let's remove all the agency mumbo jumbo. Let's not talk like a copywriter here. At its core, this rebrand is about bringing the Met's classic artworks and making them approachable to modern audiences while keeping its classic identity. Right? The serif typeface in the logo is what helps the museum maintain its classic identity, but it's the red that brings the museum into the modern age. The whole black and white museum brand identity, that can start to feel a bit tired, to be honest, and they can start to blend into one another. But when you see this red, not only does it feel refreshing to see in this field of black and white museums, but it's also an immediate indicator that this is the Met. We talk a lot about visual brand identities on this channel. This is one of the best that we've talked about. Wolff Olins dropped a classic here. On top of that, I love their work with the New York Botanical Garden, and if you're a designer, you've definitely seen this make its rounds in design media. And I also love their work with McKinsey, right? This is subtlety at its best. This is a masterclass in subtlety. So what do I think they should do next? If you look at Woe and the type of projects that they do, they're the team you call when you're looking for a rebrand, right? I mean, if you look on their website, their portfolio is almost exclusively rebrands. And they're all well done. I'm not, discounting the work that they've done. If they were, garbage, we wouldn't be talking about them here, right? But the thing with Woe is that it's a lot of work with brands that are already established, with brands that already have solid reputations in the minds of consumers. I can't help but ask, is their work good because their clients are well known, or is their work good because it's actually good? Right? Do we like the work with the Met because the work is actually good, or do we like it because it's the Met and they're one of the most prestigious art museums in the world? Woe has a lot of talented creatives, obviously, but when all we see is work with legacy brands, I feel like you just have to prove it, right? I'd love to see them work with a startup that's in seed stage. I'd love to see them work with, a client in an emerging industry, or even, a one-off pro bono client. Either way, I want to see what they can do when they don't have a brand reputation to build off of. I want to see what they do when they don't have a brand history that they can rely on. When Woe is given a blank sheet of paper, can they perform? But how do you feel about Wolff Olins? Are you a fan of them, or do you feel like they're just like every other agency out there? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's all I have for you. Be sure to give this episode a like, subscribe, and share. I've been Ziggy the Designer. If there are 2 things you need to know about me, it's that 1, I love design, and 2, I'm very opinionated. I'll talk with y'all later. Bye-bye.